I'm excellent. How are you doing?
Good. Didn't mean to disturb you at work this afternoon. Got my time zones mixed up.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as you can still make this session, I think we're all good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's not past my bedtime yet.
Okay. So, tell me, what brought you to want to have a session?
Well, you've talked to my wife,
Okay.
so but there's a lot of the stuff that she is seeing and I'm seeing too.
Okay.
And to me it's a little confusing
All right. Well, let's go
because
through it.
I'm not as um, evolved as she is in that aspect.
We'll call it trusting intuition. We won't say evolve
Okay.
because you don't need to know a lot to basically be even more functional, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, what questions did you want to go through, or what questions or subjects were you considering?
Well, one of the things is there a purpose for me in this change that's going on?
The transition.
It's happened. Yeah, the transition, and uh, my acoustic record, if that's
Available?
well, I mean, yeah, if that's available, if you can find that out for me,
Yeah.
and you know,
It's all available, but it's available contextually. So I can basically talk to you about what I'd like to talk about with you, but that's just my personal ego interest. But you may have something more specific, and we can see what shows up in that way that I can share. So where you
yeah,
wanted to talk about past lives, where you wanted to talk about the deeper meaning of some experiences you've had, or did you want to address perhaps things that you feel you should know, but are maybe not quite making it to the surface of your mind?
yeah, sort of, along that lines, just
Okay.
kind of familiarize myself and see if we can get a couple of answers to some of the questions and some of the things I've been seeing.
Okay. So what things have you been seeing? Maybe that's probably the best place to start.
Um, about about a year and a half ago, it was in the winter,
Uh-huh.
and I took a picture of the snow in the backyard
Yes.
just because of the height of it. Like we had a really good snowfall, and
So
it had stopped snowing. It
okay.
was it was a clear night. It had stopped snowing. It was a clear night, and I just standing out on the back deck, and I took a picture. When I took the picture, I didn't see anything. After I looked at the picture, there was rods of light coming up from the ground
Through the snow.
through the snow.
And you observe this photograph, and you have these questions.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, were they forms?
Spirits.
Yeah, and forms of another life source,
Well,
and the life form, and were they,
would you just like to know what they are, or would you like to know how it's possible? Because
well, both.
photography can keep doing this experience if you
Yeah,
want to. Yes,
photography can be tricky to read.
yes,
You know,
because
you got some with spirits, you got others that are just refractors of light on the lens.
yes. So without looking at this picture, I'm just going to go back into this experience that you had and basically read the field, which is to say, read all the energies that are there. And I'm going
Hmm.
to, it may be too abstract for me to share, so I'm going to use symbolic words. And I'm just going to, this makes it so that my mind doesn't try to solve it. I'm just going to come up with the words, and then we'll put it all together in context, and that will display the message for us of what we need to hear about it.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if I just look at the symbols themselves all at once, sometimes they're out of order. If I look at them all at once, then I may be too quick with my mind to judge it, and I won't be able to be open to what it could be as easily. So we'll do this together.
Okay.
I'm going to, so help me remember this, because I'm going to be so focused I may not remember what I'm saying. So I'm going to share,
Okay.
I'm getting 4 symbols. One symbol is a hand made of gold, or a shiny golden hand, right hand. Another is the number 8. Another is the power symbol, such as we have for computer power buttons. And the last one is suction, the symbology of suction as denoted from a vacuum cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you repeat those back to me? Do you happen to remember what they were?
Hand of gold, the right hand. The number 8.
Uh-huh.
The power symbol.
Okay.
Like with the power button on a computer or electronic.
Okay.
And suction, as in the vacuum.
Okay, it's coming into phase. It's coming into phase a little bit more. Repeat the second one.
Number 8.
Okay, it wasn't a number 8. It was actually an infinity symbol. What was the third and the fourth one?
The power symbol, and the fourth one was suction, the symbol for suction.
Okay. It was what you'd understand as a ley line. You familiar with ley lines?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was a purge of a ley line. There is energy that runs through the currents called bloodstreams of energy that go through the earth, and they exist below the ground, and they actually extend above the ground. So, but their original source is through a thread that goes underground, and they have a magnetic structure, but the magnetic structure can literally attract energy, and that's part of it, that they actually have an energy function. Now, a ley line for the Earth can be as wide as up to about 50 feet wide, and they basically join 2 points in the world with energy, sort of like a vein, so that two points on the Earth can be sort of like sharing a similar experience. And the pathway between them, the line itself, is literally the energy traversing. Is traversing from one location to the other, sort of like energy, trends, going along a wire, like electrons across a wire. Now, this ley line specifically is, well, I'll go through the symbols for you, and then you can see a little bit what it is. One, the first one is actually representative of wanting to get a handle on this, wanting to get a very distinct handle on this, and so that energy is present in the explanation. So it was why it was the golden hand represented. Now, the second one, the figure 8, lets the information or the explanation come through the place that the answer is, it doesn't have a final end to the information. You can keep looking into it, you can keep understanding more. There's no sort of like culmination straight answer, but there is a place that we can understand it right now as we choose to. And The third is the actual representation for energy, power, raw, natural nature for energy. And the last symbol, wait, what was the last symbol again? It was going to actually finish the statement.
Suction.
So
the symbol for suction.
Right. So the actual environment was cold and crystallized, and when you have crystalline structure, such as through snow and ice and water, humidity does it too, but the crystalline structure itself of snow literally is like pulling the energy out of the ley line and pulling it much more to the surface, as a crystalline nature does, because crystals hold patterns of energy. And what happens also is through that crystalline structure, you ended up with pillar projections, because like a crystal actually projects light out the top of it. If you look at like the pyramid, light projects out the top. And so what happened was the crystal form of the snow was literally coalescing and creating sort of like lightning bolts that were extending outwards.
Okay.
So it was basically taking the ley line information and creating lightning bolts. They were not spirits, but they were basically extending that light in focused crystalline form and directing it out.
Okay, so why were I able to see it in the camera but not through the naked eye?
Oh, okay. So when you look at energy, it encompasses a wavelength, right? All energy is basically different forms of wavelength. Light is a wavelength. We don't see light. We see what light does in its reflection in our eye, right? And we also see different different wavelengths for the different colors, right? As light is basically split into a specific wavelength, we get a specific color, just like such as in the moisture of a cloud or high level of mist, we get the rainbow, because the prism of the rain droplets splices so that we experience the wavelength divided as it enters our eye. There is, it basically needs to be received in order for it to actually exist. There is no rainbow on its own. It's the perception of its existence that allows you to see that, because you're looking at droplets that are red, blue, and green and all that, and they're actually showing themselves that way. So when you have a camera, it's basically an overexposure, right? Because it holds light over a period of time and receives it. So it's like an overexposure of subtle light. Now, in general, when you look at a camera, you say, no, it doesn't look any brighter than what I normally, doesn't look any brighter than when I look at it with my naked eye. But on a subtle level, it's actually the shutter length determines how much is coming through, and so there's a much greater ability for very high frequency wavelengths to actually accumulate and create exposure. This is the same thing with phantoms, because they exist at a very high wavelength that is not visible to the naked eye, but over a degree of exposure, you can see them. And that's why cameras also pick it up, because cameras only do, 30 frames per second, but every 1/30th of a second is many more levels of wavelength than we basically allow ourselves to have. Now, the next question comes into, why don't we see overexposures, right? Why doesn't the human brain perceive overexposures? And the truth is, actually, we do. But the other part of it is that our brain filters it out. Our brain actually filters out looking at the color of air. Air doesn't have to have a color. It's just an obstruction if it's in the way. But air can have a color because it is a resonant energy, especially the different chemicals. There's lots of gases we don't need to see, yet they do have purpose and they do exist. Okay? They don't live on the light frequency, such as some spirits do. They live on that lighter frequency, and yet there's lots of reasons why we can choose to build up our sensitivity to that. It's like being able to look into ultraviolet and infrared. You can actually train your eyesight to be able to see that. But what's easier to do is to actually train your third eye to allow you to perceive that. Because your third eye does not have frequency limitation. It doesn't have a limitation on, wavelengths. It actually can see energy should you choose to see it. And you actually have to make a conscious decision that you're going to. Because there's been a degree of effort put into saying that it doesn't have purpose. If you choose that you want to and you believe that there is purpose, then you will slowly reorganize the subatomic structure of your subconscious into moving in a direction where you can. It basically begins to happen when you start taking acid or mushrooms, okay? These things become more visible because the rules as entrained in you from birth are no longer needing to be there because there's no social function for it, you see. When you take acid, you're literally opening up the gateways to all the lots more energy that actually persists, but it comes through the third eye. The third eye is the filter that allows you to see what you're going to see. And the brain is the interpreter of what is physical, the physical domain. The ears interpret a range of sound that animals can hear beyond into and that you don't. That's because there's purpose. There's purpose for animals to hear the higher frequencies because their brains are not they're not needing to organize as much information. So their need to protect themselves involves needing to have access to more information in the wild. So they have basically a greater ability to perceive that. Now, there's many things to show that animals are aware of spirits, that they do have those channels open. But they also don't have a mind that gets all fighty-dutty trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
You see? The Native Americans could see spirits much more easier than Westerners ever could. In fact, they do, often. Still perceive spirits directly. So it's essentially, it's something that I've done. I literally wanted and practice energy. I can feel it with my hands. That's where it started. And I can sense it, and I can smell it. I can smell certain energies like a perfume. Similar to when you smell something and it gives you a memory from long ago. A particular environment, maybe a home that you lived in, maybe some nature environment you're in. There's smell memories. There's information there. And so basically...
Yeah, I had an aunt that used to wear a certain perfume.
Uh-huh.
And it's something that it's a smell that I've never smelled before. And I lost her 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And every now and then, just out of the blue, I'll get that smell. Mm-hmm. And it smells exactly like that perfume she used to wear. Where it came from, I don't know.
And you can't
I'll get that smell, and it just reminds me of her, and then it's gone.
Now, our past loved ones often visit us to see how things are going.
That's what I would, that's what I put it to. Mm-hmm. Was okay. She's looking over me.
Yeah, and it's funny because
like you think, sort of like a guardian angel for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll help it.
And although it doesn't actually, it may not even register on a device that measures smells and says that it's there. It may not. It could. It may not. But it's like your third eye gives it realism. You see, we don't understand our imagination so well. Okay? Really, it's a conduit to more information. If we basically expand our third eye, we are expanding our sixth sense, which is basically allowing us to experience more than what we have grounded with our five senses. When I say grounded, I mean we've decided. Okay? You still there? Hello? Hello? Okay, have I got you back?
Yeah, but it's showing there's an internet problem. Connection's weak, but yet I'm
Well,
showing fully connected.
well, don't just leave the video off then.
Yeah, yeah, I turned the video off this time.
Okay, we should be able to continue. So, I can't remember the last thought that I was on.
We were talking about the third eye and the sixth sense,
That's right.
and smelling
And
like I was
right.
talking about my aunt with her perfume.
So what I basically practiced and developed was to literally understand what the third eye was. It's always available, and it's available when you go to sleep. The third eye is opened, and it's really more like a vibrational state that when you fall asleep, it's much more open. There's a point where you're slightly lucid before you enter into a state like a theta state, or I can't remember, what state it is, a vibrational state of the brain, where your five senses turn off and your sixth sense is the one that's operating. Now, your sixth sense holds the essence of the other five senses. So when you're sleeping and you're having very real dreams, you're actually in a very real place. It's just a lighter world. It's a lighter physical world. And usually, lots of things start to happen that don't make sense, but there's many lighter realms. There's realms where lots of amazing things happen. There's ones that seem to be very, very physical and very, very much like here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
you're experiencing that. Sometimes you feel that you actually felt something with your hands. You felt like you were walking. You felt like you can smell something. You felt you can hear something and see something. Those senses are all basically given reality because of the brain. Now, the brain is a mechanism for analysis of what the five senses perceive, and yet it doesn't analyze very well what the sixth sense perceives, which is beyond the five senses, which is like bridges the gap to what's more. Okay? So, in order to train
Mm-hmm.
yourself to understand the sixth sense element, you want to practice it. You want to build grounding. And unfortunately, for many people, and not really unfortunately, it's been hidden and been called imagination or daydreaming. Because those are the states of mind that allow that frequency for information to come through. Now, we could talk about all the different greatest inventors and how they came to epiphanies through their imagination. And then they basically put logic to it, right? That they basically receive
Mm-hmm.
source from, broader places, and that is access to higher beings and to your own higher being, like your soul and your spirit. As we practice more and more access and listening to what I'm going to do air quotes here, but you can't see them, air quotes, to what our imagination is saying, we can
Yeah.
begin to trust it more and more. And the more that you trust it, and this is absolutely how I've gotten to anywhere that makes things look psychic to other people, is when you get to more and more trusting and really giving it purpose and giving it your undue attention and non-judgment, absolutely non-judgment, you begin to access things that you weren't supposed to be able to access previously by the old way that we understand the matrix and our reality that we've been taught. You see, we've been taught what our reality should be. We've been taught there's no such thing as miracles for the everyday man, and yet we're literally a walking miracle. Literally,
Yeah.
we should not be alive. Okay? There is an essence within us, which is our higher self. There is, I can't remember where I heard it, but very recently, they were saying in a documentary that when the spirit, they're measuring how much people weighed before and after they died, and somehow they weighed like 6 or 8 grams less after the spirit left from the point of being declared truly dead. So
Hmm.
somehow the spirit occupied a whole 8 grams of the body, and they made a documentary on it showing it over and over and over again. And of course, the body doesn't begin to rot until after that point, right? The heart still goes,
Yeah.
there's still brain activity to a degree, and yet there's a point where the spirit chooses to go and decides to leave. That element, and that soul. So we are literally a walking miracle. And when we begin to recognize that everything living is a miracle, that there is just so much going on that we don't physically see, then we can begin to accept that maybe it's high time we start seeing some of it. And some people, they need to take acid trips or whatever to begin to actually trust that there's more going on. But it begins to really break down how you understand reality when you begin to perceive beyond what you understood was previously capable or possible. So it's been a journey for me, but I really took it to heart. I literally got to a point I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to practice my sensitivity to what I don't understand and what is beyond my five senses. And really what I began doing is I started, my five senses started to get stronger. My sense of touch could feel something. With my eyes closed, I can feel when something was getting closer. So I can actually feel the energy on things. And people who do Reiki, of course, this is absolutely paramount for them to do their jobs.
Yeah.
But essentially, you can build sensitivity. And then once I really saw that there was just really a lot more, and I thought it was my imagination. That's the trick, right? So, that's just my imagination. Well, of course it is. How else do you expect it to begin to show up?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And your imagination is based on your focus too. Like you don't know what it's like, what it's like sitting on your bottom in a chair until you take your awareness and put it towards, this is what my butt feels like in my chair. So it involves giving attention and focus. Absolutely. So, that's why also we don't necessarily try to understand everything that's going on, because it's just a lot of information and data that we don't need to know. It doesn't fit into context. It doesn't make sense when we see light coming out of the ground. It doesn't make sense for us to see a ghost and not know how to speak with it or understand
Yeah.
why it's there. Okay? But all these things are there. There's many more dimensions that are very, very close to our physical level of reality that can tell us a whole lot more. And that's, a big part of why I can see energy. And I see it virtually all the time. I don't always pay attention to it. Sometimes it really shows up really bright and I say, oh my God, that's not regular sunlight or light. That's energetic light. And,
Yeah.
it gets me to take notice, because I'm meant to take notice. Just like, it's very similar to, I don't really notice it unless there's a purpose behind it. It's like when you walk around your day, you don't count the shadows all around you. You don't look at a shadow on the ground and say, ooh, that shadow's got something to tell me. You don't bother with it. And that's the point that I've gotten to now. There's energy and all sorts of things that I look at, but I'm not paying attention to it consciously. But it's very
Yeah.
available should I choose to. It's very available for me to read someone's aura should I choose to. Doesn't mean that I make sense of what I'm seeing in the aura. I basically have to start feeling what the colors mean, feeling what that energy is really about, because all energy holds a form for something. All energy has purpose, at least when it's close to the physical realm that we know. All energy has purpose, and to understand its purpose sometimes involves expanding the mind a little bit, letting yourself open yourself up to new concepts. And so that's why I don't try to make sense of all the things that I'm seeing that people don't normally see. Right? So anyhow, I've been babbling. Did you have any more questions you wanted to focus on? Hello?
Hello? Yep.
Okay. Well, anyways, I was saying I've been babbling. Is there any questions you wanted to focus on?
No, actually, your babbling is actually, started to make sense of some of the, little things that I've been noticing, and allow me to understand, and what to pay more attention to, and kind of, because like I find when I'm out, well, just today, I was outside putting siding on a closed off some buildings that we had, like just like pole barn buildings, and I was closing them off and I'm putting siding on them to protect the chipboard underneath. I'm working away at it. There's chipmunks running behind me, and they weren't just scampering by, getting out of the way. They would scamper up, stop, like 5-6 feet away from me, look at me for a minute, and I noticed them there, and then I just carry on what I was doing. And then they turn and take off the other way. I had a rabbit 10 feet away from me. Come hopping by, stop, look at me for a minute. I said hi to it, asked him how he was doing. He just sort of looked at me and then turned and slowly hopped away. He didn't like take off in a big frantic run. Slowly walked away, or just slowly hopped away. And it's like, I kind of wonder if those are signs or not, and they could be. And like I said, animals sense spirits, but their brain doesn't process it. So
they just see a person.
Or they might have sensed the spirit, but not in a threatening fashion, and that's why they didn't scurry off in a panic.
Right.
They just kind of went about doing what they were doing, and I just went about doing what I was doing.
So, are you aware of the spirits on your land? Has anybody talked about them?
I know there's some here. Angie has talked about them a lot. I've seen signs, orbs.
Yes.
Through pictures, because you can't see it on the naked eye. You can only see it when you take the picture in the camera. Yes. And it's not just the rods that were coming up, like that we described earlier as being the energy. These were actual round orbs.
Yes, the orbs are basically, if you were to travel out of your body, you'd just be a singular point of awareness. That's what an orb is. It's basically the aura body.
And I've had that happen to me too. Where you're sitting and looking, and you'd be sitting doing something, and then all of a sudden it looks like you're 7 feet up in the air looking down on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then once you become aware that's happening, it goes, and you're back down sitting in front of it again. And it's like, wow.
Right. Your mind puts a lot of judgment or calculations into it, and it takes it away.
It takes it away, yeah. And it's like,
So remote viewing is actually something you can train in doing, which is
Yeah.
to, it has a lot to do with entering states of mind. Most of them having to do with being very peaceful. Because in the peaceful states of mind, you're
Well, I
not
found it had to do,
you're
and
not grounded in
I
a,
find being here, I find being out here where we are, where, like, of course, I'm right in the matrix of everything when I'm at work because I drive truck, so I'm
uh-huh.
right in the matrix of it and everything. But when I'm at home, it's like my mind slows down, everything becomes just peaceful,
That's a
and
really
you know,
wonderful thing
I
that you
get
have
really
available to
relaxed.
you.
Oh, I'm getting to a point now where it's like I'm taking 4 weeks vacation a year, and it's you know, next year I'm likely going to be pushing for 6, but not going anywhere. Just come home and stay at home.
Mm.
I get things, you know, start tinkering and doing some stuff outside to keep myself from, you know, pulling my hair out. But I like getting outside, you
Well,
know, and getting
outside is
outside
where a lot
and
of
doing
things are
stuff.
in balance, honestly. Um,
Yeah,
Houses are constructs of humans, and outside is the construct of all that is even more than human.
yeah,
So when you find ghosts that are inside houses, that means they're definitely almost all spirits within houses are people, like our ex-human
yeah.
consciousnesses. But those that are outside are not necessarily. So
Yeah.
if you want to
The
have
ones
some
inside
fun,
your house would be like your ancestor spirits and stuff like that, looking over you,
yeah,
sort of thing. Where outside you could get, you know, from different souls and everything else.
yes. So if you want to have some fun, uh, pretend that you're starting like a seance in the way that you just sort of ask for spirits to come. And you can be like, whatever spirit is on this land, I'd like to feel your presence or see your presence. And then you can start taking pictures. Or you say, I'd like to see you, and if it helps, let me take your picture. You know,
Mm.
or you can basically, videotape yourself maybe from a tripod, standing and see what comes as you try to communicate with the spirits. And if you're in an environment that doesn't have a lot of animosity, the chances are that you have good spirits around you, as in positive spirits. But do
Now,
that.
could those spirits could those spirits come in a form of an animal?
Absolutely. No, in fact, more
Yeah.
likely.
Then you know that's likely why those, like I said, the chipmunks today, the rabbit, the uh, oh, I don't know how many times this past winter that we had blue jays actually coming and knocking on the door.
Hmm.
You know, we got an aluminum screen door on the back of the house, and of course they got a steel door inside it. But they would come up, and we could see them from the one window when we sit in the dining room. We look out, and we could actually see them come up and knock on the aluminum on the bottom of the door.
Hmm.
It would freak our dogs right out
I see.
because they heard the knocking.
Mm-hmm.
But we could see what was making the knocking. We had the first year we were here, I had a shovel sitting on standing on the back deck so we could shovel the door out so that, you know, when it snowed, Angie just shovel was right there. She could shovel out a little walkway so she could open the door to, you know, let the dogs out in the backyard to do their business. And we had squirrels climbing up the shovel handle and looking in the window.
Uh-huh. That's cute.
You know, but it was like you know, you don't normally see wildlife
Act like
acting
this.
like that.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
getting that close to a house where they know humans live. Because, but like I said, unless there's a spiritual form in them that's telling them it's okay. That trying to make a contact that way.
Well, also
You know,
take note that your field is relatively peaceful. That you actually don't hold on consciously to a lot of, let's just say, what a lot of city folk get attached to. You know, there's basically not
yeah.
a lot of drama in your field, and so your natural state, which is love, is more on the surface of your energetic presence, and so that
Hmm.
literally makes you not scary. See, what makes animals afraid of people are a lot of the anxieties within a person, a lot of the blockages of energy. Those are the sorts of things that animals are afraid of. So, especially when you exhibit fear yourself, why bears, attack people is because they're basically defending themselves from your
You're
fear of them.
yeah.
So, it's in many ways it's a testament to your balance, and basically speaks to your nature as itself. But if you want to discover if there's other spirits in your environment, you know, ask, and even ask for demonstrations. If they really want you to know they're there, they can offer you demonstrations. Like a gust of wind will show up when there wasn't one, right after you ask them a question or something. It can come in many, many different forms. So just anything that your five senses can perceive as a shift or something unique, take that in. But you may find that there are spirits that are interested in your local environment and possibly in you directly, you and your wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I'm telling you, you can find ways of seeing them. This is part of a discovery process. And through this process of discovering, it'll help you unwrite or deprogram some of what you've understood how the world operates, how reality operates, which will just continue to open up more doors for you. Just continue to open more and more doors. As that's happened for me, it's been very exciting, even though there's been a couple, leaps of faith I've had to make.
Yeah.
But I've benefited from all of them. There was no leap of faith that wasn't a wonderful experience for me to help me in my perceptions. So, anyhow, did you have...
Hey.
I think I've got you back.
Yep.
Well, did you have some other questions or subjects you wanted to reflect on?
Well, I'm just kind of, like, I know there's meaning. I basically just have to pay more attention to, some of the signs around me
And they will
when
be
I
very subtle.
yeah,
The more
yeah,
sensitive you allow yourself to be, the more subtle they are. Everything that I consider psychic about what I do is very subtle. And so usually very subtle means not important, but it's absolutely valuable. I've literally learned that everything, every speck of dust has a purpose for me as I give it my attention and discover its purpose. It's
hmm,
literally every, breath of air that I take has been given purpose. It's all here for me for a purpose. And when I was first starting to understand this, I saw the purpose in a lot of things very quickly and realized that they're literally trying to scream into my attention things that were in my life. Like, at this point, I'd say, how could I have not have noticed? You know? Because the signs, come multifaceted. Sometimes the experiences, the things I am to know, come through multiple forms. And it gives me, when you see them, especially from multiple angles, it's like bifocal vision. You get a more 3D grounded awareness of something. You're able to empathize with it better. The more you know something, truly, the more you empathize with it. Which is, a very grounding experience. So, as I gave validity to all my experiences, I realized I have quite a bit to analyze about my life. I have quite a lot to get to know about myself and all these things I've attracted, because they're all mirrors of me. You can't not attract something that isn't important to you. It's all there for a purpose. Now you can say, well, maybe I'm a pack rat and I've kept a lot of things that I don't really care about anymore. But literally, you know the significance of something based on how much thought time you give it, or that you are giving it. And thought time can be physical time, or it can be thought time, as in your analysis or your observation. That's thought time as well. And you can begin to see all the themes behind why things begin to exist. It's like you have a marriage, but the marriage has much deeper meanings, much deeper truths and purposes. And you can know all those. You can know all of them. You can see your soul contracts. You can see how things came together. And if, on one level, you're going to want to believe in magic before you do that, or extreme miracles. But essentially, everything is a miracle. Every single thing has been given energetic life. And so by the definition of miracle, which is basically doesn't seem plausible, is what a miracle is usually given. It doesn't seem plausible, but it's wonderful that it has happened. You can begin to see how it's so implausible that so many things have occurred, or things that show up in your life, synchronicities sometimes we call them. When we start to realize how implausible they are, yet they happen anyhow, you start to realize really that you really do attract everything. And you don't even necessarily attract them all because you said or thought about them. They're happening at levels that you aren't even conscious of. That you attract the product of many days and weeks forward into your life when you dream. That you're attracting them in your dream space. Because you're always existing, whether you're asleep or whether you're awake. You're always a polar attraction to something. It's just when you're dreaming, you don't have so many things holding you back. You don't have a whole lot of resistances as such as your ego is when you're awake. Sometimes when you are dreaming, your ego is there, sometimes telling you certain things shouldn't be. But when you're awake, there's many more resistances per your beliefs. Beliefs are just, the sides of the maze. And if you choose to do away with the maze, you can do away with the maze. Or you can follow the maze. You can follow your heart through the maze. Or you can begin to see the maze for what it is. And know that this obstacle course is not meant to just run you through the loops. It's to get you to, existentially open up your awareness of existence for yourself. Anyhow, I know a lot of my stuff sounds like it's very existential, but at this point, existential and physical reality are very close. Very, very close.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about the experiment, the penny experiment. Have you heard my telling of that? I last year, and I haven't done it since, and I mean to again, and although I've tried, I mean to get back to a place of innocence where I created a miracle. But I did it intentionally. I heard about these monks that can manifest things out of thin air. They would manifest food out of thin air and they'd eat. They'd go out, they'd go on a hike very, very far away from the temple or wherever they were, and they'd manifest their lunch. They wouldn't take it with them. They literally create it out of thin air through their energy and through their, you know, their focus. I mean, they weren't making money or whatever. They didn't need to do that. They just basically manifested what they sought, and that was food that they ingested. Now, I saw this, and I read somewhere some ideas about it, and yet I basically said, let's see if this is true. And over the course of an hour, I basically meditatively focused on a penny that was in my left hand. And although I lost my focus from time to time, I had basically been practicing meditation my whole life. It's one of the legacies that my parents have given me by, by raising me, going to an ashram where there was a guru whose specialty was teaching and meditation. So that legacy was in me to be able to focus. And meditation for me is just training to focus. So I focused on, and I allowed this penny to show up in my right hand. So I had two hands. And so basically I absorbed the essence, the absolute, I basically became the penny, so to speak. And then through partially squinted, blurry eyes, I projected and imagined a penny in my right hand, and it appeared. And I ended up with two pennies, identical. I manifested a solid object out of thin air through my intent alone for that reality to be true. That, of course, changed my entire approach. I didn't even almost believe it before I did it. But
Well,
my
it's
innocence
sacred,
allowed it to come forward.
You don't believe it until you see it.
On one level, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And yet I couldn't do it after that. I tried 2 times after and realized that I had created blockages. I actually interpreted that if I could do it again, my life was going to change more than I was ready for it to change.
Yeah.
Because now I'm thinking of, recreating bars of gold, things like this. And that's not quite in alignment with the purpose for why I allowed it to happen the first time.
Yeah.
And now I'm, in many ways I was afraid of what it meant for my social life.
Yeah, it showed you what you can do.
Yeah.
But now it's not allowing you to do it until you understand that what the
Well, basically my ego started to want to take responsibility. Yeah. And
take responsibility and not using it for personal gains.
Yep. So in the end, it really, lobotomized my understanding of how things operate. I mean, I could already see energy before. So what I was actually seeing is I was seeing the energy of the penny show up. That really helped me see it because I could see the energy coalesce. It really helped. But in the end, it was funny. As I looked at it under a magnifying glass, and even though the dates on the penny were the same and generally it looked like the same penny, under a magnifying glass, some of the blemishes were not accurate. And these were things that I didn't take note of when I was studying it the first time. So on one level, I was like, oh man, I can't prove it's a copy. I can't prove it.
Yeah.
Because under a microscope, it doesn't look like the same penny.
Detail, detail, detail.
So I was like, oh man. So on one level, I basically entered a reality where I backed off from being so attached to that. Then again, it definitely happened.
You made a duplicate, but not an exact copy.
Not an exact copy. I made as much of a copy as I could perceive
Yeah.
with my naked eye. So this is the little games that we play, that our broader self plays with us, and the tools it uses to get you to really wake up. But either way, obviously, you know a bit about me now. I'm not like a lot of other people, but my whole purpose now is to see everyone find themselves. See everyone discover just what it takes for them to find who they are and understand
Yeah.
about broader reality, about their broader reality, their own. Because it's personal. You can't even tell someone else what their reality should be. You can't. Because it's not as true as it is for that person.
Yeah.
So, I can't even be a guru and tell you the way it all works. Because I would be wrong. I'd only be right for mine. I'd only be right for my world. So, that's what makes me not such a great teacher, I suppose. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay not being a teacher. I'm okay just talking about what I experience. And if that helps people and it appears it really is helping people, it's just wonderful. It's all that matters. So, anyhow.
Yeah. I helped a friend of mine out last fall that kind of went through psychological depression, and I kind of helped him out. He would call me, every other day or so, start talking about things he was seeing, and he would somebody told him this, and it's like, what do they mean by it and stuff like this. And basically what I did was, started explaining to him it's not, don't take everything personally that somebody says. There's always two sides to the coin. There's, everything's not black and white. Somebody can say something and three people can hear it, and there's going to be three different ways that that's perceived.
Yeah. Everybody has their own reality.
Actually, there could be four different ways it's perceived. The person that said it and the three that heard it, and I kind of, a lot of what I was telling them is the same thing a psychologist was telling them.
Yeah.
I think I took the wrong line of work.
But you'll find that there's almost no such thing as the wrong anything. There's a point where you're just happy with the way things are, and everything that isn't, you take a look at it and you say, well, I wonder why you exist if I'm not happy with you.
Yeah.
And you start asking.
That was another thing he was saying. Like, that was another thing he was saying was right and wrong. Everything was right and wrong. Everything was right or wrong. And it's like, no. Whether something's right is a matter of perception on each individual.
Yes.
So, like, something could be said, and it's, with two individuals, each thinking they're right is their opinion of what is said. Not necessarily, that's where you get some people will sit down and they'll argue over the same thing, one saying it's right and the other one believing he's right, and they'll sit there and they'll, for lack of a better term, weigh the odds on it.
Yeah.
And hash back and forth, each stating their point of why they think it's right. and it ends up being a stalemate because at the end of it, they still both think they're right.
Well, you'll find,
It's a, it's a,
a
it's
lot
a
of
matter
people.
it's a matter of opinion, and everybody has their own opinion, and there's no two opinions the same.
That's right. Until someone, well, at least until people realize that you have your own truth, people are just going to continue to argue.
Oh
People are
yeah,
still going to have differences, and for me, I'm just like, that's, you got to let them have their truth. You got to let them have that. I mean, you can
yeah,
speak yours and you can invite people to your reality, but if it's not, if they're not ready or if it's not in their heart to, you got to be able to let go of that too. So, anyhow, we're sort of up to the hour here.
yep.
I want to thank you for sharing your time with me. We had some really good discussions, and I really like hearing about your experiences. And I'll have a recording for you that you can download so you can
Okay.
listen to this, or your wife can listen to it if you want to share that. But
Mm-hmm.
we're not friends on Facebook, I don't think.
No.
Are you on the Facebook tool at all?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
you can add me, or if you have any other questions that you might have forgotten, you can add them in the chat window here for Skype or on Facebook.
Okay.
And we can get back to if you have any other questions that don't really warrant a session, and I'll get to them when I can. But
Okay.
it's been a very enlightening talk here today. So thank you for all that you've shared and for bringing it forward in discussion.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's been enlightening on this end too. So I appreciate that very much.
Well, you take care.
All right. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.